Imagine winning the lottery and then having to give it all back. That's what happened to these 20 rock gods. They earned millions, but their out-of-control habits cost them everything. We're diving deep into the financial ruin that one star blamed on a single, disastrous album, and another star's habit cost him his own band. 1. Vince Neil. Let's start with one of the most famous party bands of all time, Motley Crue. As their frontman, Vince Neil was the king of the 80s glam metal scene. He had the voice, the look, and an appetite for the wildlife that was legendary. The band didn't just sing about partying. They lived it 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. But not all things are what they seem. That non-stop party came with a massive price tag. Vince's life was a whirlwind of fast cars, endless nights, and terrible decisions. In 1984, his lifestyle led to a tragic car crash that resulted in the passing of his friend. The legal problems from that one night cost him millions. We're talking about settlements that would drain a normal person's bank account for life. But Vince wasn't just spending on lawyers. He was burning through his millions. He bought mansions he couldn't afford and poured money into businesses that failed, like a private jet service and a bar in Las Vegas. By the 1990s, when the band's popularity started to fade, the money dried up. Vince was fired from the band, and to put it mildly, his finances fell apart. He faced near bankruptcy, losing his mansions and his flashy cars. He had to fight his way back from zero. Vince Neil's fall was fast and hard, all fueled by a lifestyle he couldn't control. But for the singer of another 80s band, the problem wasn't just his spending. It was a habit that physically destroyed his greatest asset, his voice. 2. Tom Kiefer. If you were a rock fan in the 80s, you know the band Cinderella. Led by Tom Kiefer, they had a gritty, bluesy sound that was different from the other glam bands. Hits like Nobody's Fool and Don't Know What You Got Till It's Gone were massive. Tom's raspy, powerful voice was his signature, but the thing nobody tells you is that the rock star lifestyle, with all its late nights and bad habits, takes a serious physical toll. For Tom, those vices, combined with a non-stop touring schedule, were a disaster for his vocal cords. He started having serious problems with his voice. He couldn't hit the notes he used to. What many overlooked was that this wasn't a simple sore throat. He was diagnosed with paralysis of one of his vocal cords. It was a career-ending diagnosis for most singers. He needed multiple, very expensive surgeries just to be able to speak, let alone sing. This meant no more touring. And in the music business, if you don't tour, you don't make money. This all happened right as the 90s grunge scene exploded, making bands like Cinderella seem outdated overnight. His record deal was gone. The money stopped coming in. Tom Kiefer went from a stadium rock superstar to facing a mountain of medical bills and a future where he might never sing again. Kiefer's career was stalled by a physical problem from his lifestyle. But our next star's problem was his personality, made 1,000 times worse by his own personal demons. 3. Sebastian Bach. Sebastian Bach was the wild child frontman of Skid Row. In the late 80s and early 90s, he was the ultimate rock god. He had a screaming voice that could shatter glass, the long blonde hair, and an attitude that was pure rebellion. The band's first album sold over 5 million copies. They were on top of the world. But that famous attitude, fueled by a lot of hard partying, was a double-edged sword. Sebastian was known for his massive ego and his incredibly hot temper. He was always in the headlines for the wrong reasons, from on-stage meltdowns to getting into fights with fans and security. His behavior became more and more chaotic. His bandmates, who were the ones writing the songs, got tired of it. They wanted to focus on the music, but Sebastian was focused on being a chaotic rock star. In 1996, they had enough. They fired him. Sebastian Bach, at the height of his fame, was kicked out of his own band. He thought he would be a bigger star on his own. He was wrong. The 90s were not kind to his style of metal. His solo career completely flopped. He went from selling out arenas to playing tiny, half-empty clubs. Years later, he admitted he had zero savings. He even got evicted from his home. To make matters worse, his house in New Jersey was destroyed by Hurricane Irene, and he lost priceless band memorabilia. He had gone from a multimillionaire rock god to having absolutely nothing. Bach's ego got him fired. But our next musician was fired from his first legendary band before he even got famous, all because of his dangerous habits. 4. Dave Mustaine. Every metalhead knows Dave Mustaine as the fiery red-headed genius behind the thrash metal band Megadeth. He is a legend, a guitar hero, and a brilliant songwriter, but what many overlooked is his first band. You see, Dave was the original lead guitarist for a little group called Metallica. Back in the early 80s, Dave was known for two things: his incredible guitar playing and his out-of-control personal habits. He was partying way too hard, and his behavior was getting dangerous and unpredictable. The other guys in Metallica were no angels, but even they couldn't handle Dave. In 1983, right before they were set to record their very first album, they kicked him out. They put him on a 4-day bus ride from New York back to California and told him he was done. This lit a fire of revenge in Dave that burned for decades. He formed Megadeth with one goal: to be faster, heavier, and bigger than Metallica. He succeeded in many ways, selling millions of albums. But his personal demons followed him. He spent years battling his vices, and he admits he spent a fortune on his habits. Then disaster struck. He suffered a severe arm injury that left him unable to play guitar. His entire career vanished overnight. He was so broke at one point that this multi-platinum rock star had to rely on food stamps to feed his family. He had lost all his investments and had to completely rebuild his life and career from the ground up. Mustaine had to rely on food stamps. Our next singer also hit rock bottom, but his story is a revolving door of near-death experiences and losing everything over and over again. 5. Scott Weiland. In the 1990s, Scott Weiland was the voice of a generation. As the frontman for Stone Temple Pilots, he was a mesmerizing performer. He had a unique voice and a charisma that was impossible to ignore. After STP, he had a second massive hit as the singer for the supergroup Velvet Revolver, but Scott had a very public, very serious battle with powerful substances. It was a problem that haunted his entire life, from his earliest days of fame to his tragic end. You see, his habits made him completely unreliable. Stone Temple Pilots was forced to cancel entire tours, losing millions of dollars because Scott was too sick to perform. His bandmates tried to help him, but his problems just got worse. He was in and out of recovery programs, which cost a fortune. He was in and out of court for his chaotic behavior. The financial drain was immense. He went through extremely expensive divorces that drained his savings. His bandmates in Velvet Revolver, who were all rock legends themselves, eventually fired him because they just couldn't deal with the chaos anymore. He was earning millions of dollars from #1 albums, but he was constantly broke. He ended up in massive debt, owing money to lawyers, managers, and ex-wives. He lost his bands, his fortune, and sadly, in 2015, he lost his life, found on his tour bus. Weiland's story is a tragic one of a life cut short. But for our next rocker, the party lifestyle of the 80s just didn't translate to the 90s, leaving him with a massive financial hangover. 6. Ricky Rocket. Back in the 80s, Poison was one of the biggest bands on the planet. They were the definition of glam metal, with huge hair, makeup, and catchy party anthems. Ricky Rocket was their drummer, living the high life with his bandmates. They were selling millions of albums, like Look What the Cat Dragged In, and touring the world in private jets. The money was flowing like water, and Ricky and the band spent it just as fast. The party was non-stop. They were living the ultimate rock star dream. The problem is, dreams don't last forever. When the 1990s arrived, the music scene changed almost overnight. Grunge bands like Nirvana and Pearl Jam took over, and suddenly, bands like Poison were seen as a joke. Their record sales plummeted. The big arena tours turned into smaller club gigs. The money, to put it mildly, stopped. But Ricky's spending habits didn't. He was still trying to live that 80s lifestyle on a 90s budget. What many overlooked is that the royalties from old hits weren't enough to pay for mansions and flashy cars forever. His finances started to crumble. He made bad investments and couldn't pay his bills. In the 2000s, this famous rock star drummer had to face the ultimate embarrassment. His home went into foreclosure. He lost it all. Ricky Rocket's 80s party ended with a foreclosure. Our next star was the king of the 90s, but his fall was even more public and, believe it or not, left him homeless. 7. Scott Stapp. At the end of the 1990s and early 2000s, you could not find a bigger band than Creed. Their songs were everywhere. Their albums, Human Clay and Weathered, sold tens of millions of copies. Their singer, Scott Stapp, had a deep, powerful voice that was unmistakable. He was one of the biggest rock stars on earth, but Scott was battling some serious personal demons. His behavior became more and more erratic. He was having on-stage meltdowns, including a famous one in Chicago where he was unable to sing. The band's fans were furious and even sued. This led to the band breaking up at the peak of their fame. Scott's problems with his vices and his mental health spiraled out of control. He went through a very messy, very public, and very expensive divorce. He was burning through the millions he made from Creed. He spent it on his habits, on bad deals, and on a lavish lifestyle. Then, in 2014, the world saw how bad it had gotten. Scott posted a shocking video online, claiming he was completely broke and homeless. He said his bank accounts had been frozen and he was living in his truck. He had gone from selling 50 million albums to having literally nothing. It was a stunning fall from grace, a reminder that no amount of money can protect you from your own demons. Stapp's fall left him living in a truck. Our next star's vices led to so much fighting within his band that it tore one of the greatest metal groups of all time apart. 8. Phil Anselmo. Pantera was one of the most important and powerful metal bands of the 1990s. They practically invented the groove metal sound. At the front of it all was their singer, Phil Anselmo. He was an intense, scary, and captivating performer. But Phil had a dark secret. He was dealing with a lot of pain from a back injury, and he began to self-medicate with powerful substances. This problem grew and grew, changing his personality. He became angry, distant, and hard to work with. His issues created a massive divide in the band, especially between him and the two brothers who founded it, Dimebag Darrell and Vinnie Paul. The tension was so bad that the band, at the height of its power, just fell apart. They broke up in 2003, and the members were no longer on speaking terms. What many overlooked is that this breakup had huge financial costs. Instead of touring arenas as Pantera, Phil had to focus on smaller side projects that made a fraction of the money. His health problems also led to massive medical bills. While he didn't end up homeless, he lost the multi-million dollar cash machine that was Pantera, all because his personal demons tore the band to pieces. The tragic ending of his bandmate Dimebag Darrell meant that the band could never, ever reunite, sealing that financial loss forever. Phil Anselmo's demons tore his band apart. But our next star's habits were so extreme, he was legally declared dead for 2 minutes, and then kept going. 9. Nikki Sixx. We're going back to Motley Crue because you can't talk about this topic without mentioning their bass player and main songwriter, Nikki Sixx. If Vince Neil was the party, Nikki was the dark, troubled soul behind the music. He was also the one with one of the most serious substance problems in rock history. Nikki was spending a fortune on his vices. He has been very open about it since, admitting that he was spending thousands of dollars a day on his habits. Think about that. That's over $1 million a year just on powders and bottles. His problem got so bad that in 1987, He had a famous overdose. His heart stopped. He was legally dead for 2 full minutes before a paramedic saved his life. You would think that would be the ultimate wake-up call, right? Wrong. He went home from the hospital and immediately used again. This chaos was his life for years. The band almost broke up a dozen times. Nicky's finances were a total disaster. He was making millions from writing hits like Girls, Girls, Girls and Dr. Feelgood, but it was all going straight to his dealers or being lost in a haze of bad decisions. He faced multiple near bankruptcies. It wasn't until he finally got clean years later that he was able to take control of his money and build his fortune back. Nicky Sixx's habit almost ended his life. Our next singer's problems didn't just cost him his money. It cost him the name of the very band he helped create. 10. Jeff Tate. For decades, Queensryche was known as the thinking man's metal band. They had complex, intelligent albums like Operation Mindcrime. The voice behind that sound was the incredible, soaring tenor of Jeff Tate. For a long time, the band was a huge success. But by the 2000s, things were starting to go sour. Jeff's lifestyle and his personal choices started to clash with the rest of the band. There were reports of his heavy drinking and erratic behavior. The final straw came in 2012. Before a show in Brazil, tensions boiled over. There was a huge backstage fight. Jeff got into a physical argument with his bandmates. It was the end of the line. The rest of the band fired him, but it didn't end there. Jeff believed that as the singer, he was the band. He sued his former bandmates for the right to use the Queensryche name. This led to a long, nasty, and incredibly expensive legal battle. Millions of dollars were spent on lawyers. In the end, Jeff lost. The band got to keep the name, and he was forced to tour under his own. He went from selling out arenas as Queensryche to playing small theaters. The combination of his lifestyle and the legal fees he lost cost him his band, his legacy, and a massive part of his fortune. Jeff Tate's battles cost him his band's name. But our next star's financial problems came after the fame had already faded, and he had to start from scratch. 11. Dee Snider. We're not gonna take it. That was the battle cry for Twisted Sister, and their frontman, Dee Snider, was the ultimate rebel of 80s metal. With his giant blonde hair, crazy makeup, and loudmouth attitude, he was one of the most recognizable faces on MTV. He even took on the U.S. government in a famous Senate hearing about music censorship. Twisted Sister was on top of the world, but their fame was surprisingly short. By the late 80s, their style of metal was falling out of fashion, and the band broke up. Dee thought his fame would carry him. He was wrong. Dee had lived large, but he wasn't a party guy in the same way as the others. His problem was bad financial planning. He assumed the money would last forever. When the band ended, the checks stopped. He tried a solo career, but it failed. He tried other bands, and they failed. By the early 90s, Dee Snider was completely broke. He had lost everything. He tells a story about how at one point he was riding his bicycle to a low-paying office job, and a fan pulled up next to him in a car. Confused, asking, "Aren't you Dee Snider?" He had $0 to his name. He had to completely reinvent himself, working in radio and doing reality TV, to slowly build his wealth back over decades. Dee Snider went from rock god to office worker. But our next star is perhaps the most famous and most unbelievable comeback story of them all. A man who was fired from his own band for being too out of control. 12. Ozzy Osbourne. He is the godfather of heavy metal, Ozzy Osbourne. As the original singer of Black Sabbath, he helped invent the entire genre. But from the very beginning, Ozzy was just as famous for his unbelievably chaotic lifestyle as he was for his music. By the late 1970s, Ozzy's habits were completely out of control. He was so unreliable that his bandmates in Black Sabbath, who were not exactly clean living themselves, couldn't take it anymore. In 1979, they fired him. They kicked out the most famous member of their band. Ozzy fell into a deep, dark place. He spent months locked in a hotel room, just wasting away. He was broke, and his career was over. He had squandered all the money he had made from Black Sabbath. What many overlooked is that he was saved by his future wife, Sharon. She took him on as a solo artist and, against all odds, built him into an even bigger star than he was with Sabbath. But his habits continued for decades. He spent millions and millions of dollars on his vices. He famously said he can't believe he's alive. He lost fortunes on binges and bad behavior. It was only the smart management of his wife, and later the massive success of their reality TV show, The Osbournes, that made him wealthy again. Without Sharon, Ozzy would have been another rock and roll casualty with nothing. Ozzy was fired by his band for his habits. Our next star is from the same band as Ricky Rocket, and his own habits led to health scares that nearly ended him and his bank account. 13. Bret Michaels. We're back with Poison because you can't talk about that band without talking about their frontman, Bret Michaels. He was the ultimate 80s poster boy, and he lived the life to the fullest. The band was a non-stop party, and Bret was at the center of it all. Like his bandmate Ricky Rocket, Bret saw his world change when grunge came in. The money wasn't flowing like it used to, but Bret's problems were much deeper. He is a type 1 diabetic, a condition that requires careful management. The rock star lifestyle, with all its late nights and heavy partying, is the worst possible thing for someone with that condition. His out-of-control habits put a huge strain on his health. This led to massive medical bills and health scares. He suffered a near-fatal brain hemorrhage in 2010. While he was making money from reunion tours and his reality TV show, Rock of Love, his finances were always shaky. He spent fortunes on his lifestyle and on legal fees from various lawsuits, including one involving a private video. His health problems, made worse by his lifestyle, were a constant financial drain. He had to keep working, keep touring, and keep doing reality TV to pay for the damage he had done to his body and his bank account over the years. Bret Michaels' habits nearly cost him his life. Our next legend's habits did cost him his life, and he died with almost nothing, despite being a rock icon. 14. Lemmy Kilmister. There is no one else in rock and roll like Lemmy Kilmister. As the founder, bassist, and singer of Motorhead, he was the definition of a music outlaw. His gravelly voice and thunderous bass playing were legendary. He lived his life with one rule: no regrets, and he meant it. Lemmy was famous for his non-stop habits. For over 40 years, he was known for his daily diet of a particular brand of whiskey and his constant use of other substances. He was a walking, talking, hard-rocking machine. The band Motorhead, while legendary, was never as commercially huge as bands like Motley Crue or Metallica. They were a working-class band that had to tour constantly to make a living. Lemmy's lifestyle was expensive, and it eroded the royalties he earned. What many overlooked is that despite his fame, Lemmy never cared about getting rich. He lived in a small, rent-controlled apartment in Los Angeles for decades. He spent his money on his vices and his famous collection of memorabilia. When he passed away in 2015, reports surfaced that he had minimal assets to his name. He had lived the life he wanted, but it cost him his health and left him with very little money in the end. He truly lived for rock and roll, and he died broke because of it. Lemmy died with almost nothing. Our next star is from Motley Crue again, and his romantic entanglements, fueled by a wild lifestyle, cost him millions. 15. Tommy Lee. We have to talk about the last member of Motley Crue, the drummer, Tommy Lee. He was the wild, spinning, upside-down heart of the band. And just like his bandmates, he lived a life of complete and total excess. Tommy's habits were legendary. He was always at the center of the storm, pushing the limits of partying. But his real financial trouble came from his chaotic personal life, which was made worse by his vices. His string of high-profile relationships and divorces were tabloid gold, but they were also incredibly expensive. His most famous relationship was with the actress Pamela Anderson. Their time together was a whirlwind of passion and chaos. It also produced a famous private videotape that was stolen and released, leading to massive, costly lawsuits. Their divorce and his other divorces cost him millions in settlements. Tommy was making a fortune, but he was spending it just as fast. He spent it on his habits, on mansions, on fancy cars, and on lawyers. He was involved in numerous scandals and legal troubles that all came with hefty price tags. Like his bandmates, he saw his massive fortune disappear, and he had to rely on reunion tours to get his finances back in order. Tommy Lee's personal life cost him millions, but our next star's personal demons led to a financial disaster so big it cost his record label over $13 million. 16. Axl Rose Guns N' Roses. In the late 80s and early 90s, they were the most dangerous band in the world, and their frontman, Axl Rose, was the most dangerous man in music. He was a ticking time bomb of talent and rage. The band's first album, Appetite for Destruction, is one of the best-selling debut albums of all time. They were swimming in money, but the band was a mess of personal problems and huge egos. Axl's behavior was famously erratic. He would show up hours late for concerts, or not at all, causing riots and costing the band millions in fines and damages. After the band's original lineup fell apart, Axl went into hiding to work on a new album. This album was called Chinese Democracy. It became a legend for all the wrong reasons. Axl, battling his own demons and obsessed with perfection, spent 15 years working on it. He burned through producers, musicians, and studios. The cost just kept going up and up. The record label, Geffen, reportedly spent over $13 million funding the album's creation. That is one of the most expensive albums ever made. When it finally came out in 2008, it was a commercial flop. It didn't come close to making that money back. Axl's personal issues and his wild spending had created a $13 million hole. Axl's perfectionism cost $13 million. Our next entry involves the biggest metal band of all time and their own battles that almost ended everything. 17. James Hetfield and Lars Ulrich. This one is a bit different. Metallica is the biggest metal band on Earth. They are worth hundreds of millions of dollars. So how did they lose everything? Well, in the early 2000s, they came closer than you think. The band had two major financial drains. The first was their famous lawsuit against the file-sharing service Napster. The band, led by drummer Lars Ulrich, sued the company for letting people download their music for free. While they were fighting for artists' rights, the public turned on them. They were seen as greedy millionaires. The lawsuit cost them a fortune in legal fees and, for a while, cost them a lot of fans. But the real problem was happening behind the scenes. Frontman James Hetfield's long-term battle with the bottle was reaching a breaking point. His personal demons were tearing the band apart. In 2001, he had to abruptly enter a recovery program, and the band completely shut down. For almost 2 years, Metallica did not exist. There was no touring, no recording, no income, just massive, ongoing expenses. They were paying for a hugely expensive therapist to try and keep them together. This period, captured in their documentary, Some Kind of Monster, shows a band on the brink of total collapse. If James hadn't gotten help, the Metallica money machine would have stopped forever, and their legacy would have been destroyed. Metallica's legal battles were costly. But our next star was in Guns N' Roses, and his problems got him kicked out, sending him on a spiral to total poverty. 18. Steven Adler. Before Axl Rose's $13 million album, Before the Riots, Guns N' Roses had a different kind of problem. Their original drummer, Steven Adler. He was the fun-loving heart of the band, with a unique swinging groove that defined their first album. But Steven had a very serious substance problem, one that was even worse than his bandmates. He was so consumed by his vices that he couldn't perform. He would show up to recording sessions unable to play. The band, which was trying to record its massive follow-up albums, Use Your Illusion I and II, had a huge problem. They gave him chances. They even made him sign a contract saying he would get clean. He couldn't do it. In 1990, at the peak of their fame, the band fired him. This was a devastating blow. Not only was he out of the biggest band in the world, but he was also cut off from the millions of dollars they were about to make. He sued the band and got a settlement, but he burned through that money. His habits got worse. He suffered serious health problems from his lifestyle, including a stroke that damaged his speech. For years, he was completely broke. He was homeless, living in his car, and at one point, this multi-platinum rock star was on food stamps. He had lost it all. Adler went from stadiums to food stamps. Our next star was the voice of the 90s grunge scene, but his personal demons didn't just cost him his money. They cost him his career and his life. 19. Lane Staley's Alice in Chains was one of the big four of the Seattle grunge scene. Their music was dark, heavy, and beautiful, and the soul of that sound was their singer, Lane Staley. His haunting, powerful voice, often harmonizing with guitarist Jerry Cantrell, was one of the most unique sounds in rock history. But Lane's music was so dark for a reason. He was chronicling his own deep, painful battle with personal demons. From the very beginning of the band's fame, Lane was struggling. His problems with powerful substances were no secret. As the 90s went on, his health got worse and worse. The band had to stop touring. You can't be one of the biggest bands in the world if you can't play shows. And no shows means no money. The band's income dried up. What many overlooked is that Lane didn't just lose his money. He lost himself. He became a total recluse, locking himself away in his Seattle apartment for years. He stopped making music. He didn't see his friends or family. His body wasted away. When he passed away in 2002, he was a shadow of his former self. He had completely isolated himself from the world, his rock star fortune long gone, a tragic end for one of the most talented voices of his generation. Did you know that a wildly popular heavy metal track could cause such a national uproar that its singer was summoned before the U.S. Senate accused of poisoning the minds of young listeners? From infamous Filthy 15 lists created to silence rebellious voices to explosive music videos so shocking they were banished from television screens. Here are 20 banned heavy metal songs that were too controversial. 1. Judas Priest's Eat Me Alive shocked Congress. Judas Priest, an English band celebrated for their singer's powerful voice and classic heavy metal look, released the song Eat Me Alive on their 1984 album, Defenders of the Faith. A concerned group of parents called the PMRC became very upset, declaring the song's words described improper grown-up actions. They believed lyrics detailing intense physical sensations were actually describing someone being forced into unpleasant private situations, possibly even with a weapon, which was seen as completely unsuitable for young listeners. As a result, Eat Me Alive was placed on the PMRC's widely discussed Filthy 15 list, making it a symbol of bad music and significantly contributing to the demand for warning labels on albums, which changed how music was sold. Judas Priest, however, did not change their style and continued making music their own way, while this particular song became a legendary part of music controversy history. But if you thought Judas Priest was wild, wait till you hear the song that made even store managers run for cover. 2. Wasp's Animal was banned from music stores. WASP, an American rock band known for their wild stage performances and rebellious music, was responsible for this audacious song, Animal, F like a Beast, released as a single in 1984. The title itself, which included a very rude word for grown-up relations combined with the word beast, caused many people to react with disbelief and disgust. The PMRC quickly labeled the song as being about intercourse and included it on their Filthy 15 list, as many adults felt its content was far too crude and untamed for public consumption, especially in stores or on the radio where children might encounter it. Blackie Lawless, the band's leader, stated he merely wanted to be honest about basic human feelings, but his song certainly provoked intense anger from many quarters. This song created an enormous stir, with many stores refusing to sell it and radio stations avoiding its broadcast. The PMRC used it as a prime example of music they believed had gone too far. Blackie Lawless even reported receiving serious threats against the band and dealing with fake bomb scares at their concerts due to the song's notoriety. Ironically, all this trouble helped make the song a legendary track, and it remains one of WASP's most famous pieces, a true anthem of rebellion. Now, from carnal chaos to dark magic, the next band invited listeners straight into the devil's arms. 3. Merciful Fate's Into the Coven Scared Parents. Merciful Fate, a Danish heavy metal band fronted by the uniquely high-voiced singer King Diamond, who often wore scary face paint, presented this eerie tale in Into the Coven from their 1983 debut album, Melissa. This song deeply worried the PMRC, who placed it on their Filthy 15 list because they believed it was about the occult, which refers to magic, spirits, and mysterious phenomena. Lyrics inviting listeners to come into my coven and become Lucifer's child, with Lucifer being another name for the devil, made many religious people extremely anxious, fearing the song was a musical invitation to worship dark forces. Consequently, Into the Coven and Merciful Fate were quickly branded as a satanic band, implying they supported evil. King Diamond explained that his interest was more in a philosophy of individualism rather than actual devil worship, but the band's spooky reputation persisted. While not universally banned, the song certainly made many parents hesitant about their children listening to Merciful Fate, solidifying heavy metal's association with dark and mysterious themes. And just when parents thought it couldn't get worse, Black Sabbath roared back with a crash, literally. 4. Black Sabbath's Trashed caused major outrage. Black Sabbath, widely considered the originators of the heavy metal sound, were still creating impactful music, even with a different singer, when they released Trashed on their 1983 album, Born Again. The PMRC took strong issue with this song, adding it to their Filthy 15 list because they asserted it glorified bad habits. With lyrics vividly describing being heavily intoxicated and then crashing a vehicle, the group worried that the song made these hazardous activities seem like an exciting adventure, potentially inspiring young listeners to take similar risks. Due to its inclusion on this prominent list, Trashed was highlighted as a song with a potentially negative influence. Interestingly, the song was based on a real incident where the band's guitarist, Tony Iommi, had an accident in a car. While the band was likely just recounting a wild event rather than promoting dangerous behavior, the PMRC viewed it as another piece of music that could lead young people astray, further pushing the movement for warning labels on music. But that crash was only the warm-up. Coming next, a rally cry so loud it had Congress clenching its pearls. 5. Twisted Sister's We're Not Gonna Take It attacked. Twisted Sister, the American band easily recognized by their bright makeup and rebellious attitude, delivered the unforgettable song We're Not Gonna Take It, which became a massive hit from their 1984 album Stay Hungry. Surprisingly, this sing-along favorite was also included on the PMRC's Filthy 15 list, where it was accused of promoting violence. This accusation stemmed largely from its popular music video, in which a critical father yells at his son, who then transforms into singer Dee Snider, leading to comical scenes where the father is tossed about. The PMRC interpreted these scenes not as humorous, but as a harmful message that encouraged children to act aggressively towards their parents. Dee Snider, the band's outspoken frontman, personally went to the U.S. Senate to defend his song, explaining to government officials that the video was intended to be funny, like a cartoon, and that the song was about self-empowerment, not actual physical conflict. His articulate defense became quite famous. Despite being labeled as violent, the song achieved enormous success and is still widely enjoyed today, demonstrating that music intended as rebellious fun can sometimes be interpreted in very different ways. Yet Twisted Sister wasn't done. Next came a song that MTV wouldn't dare play when night fell. 6. Megadeth's In My Darkest Hour got blocked. Megadeth, the influential thrash metal band led by Dave Mustaine, expressed deep emotions in My Darkest Hour, a significant track from their 1988 album, So Far, So Good, So What? MTV, the music video channel, examined the video and its serious lyrics, particularly a line suggesting things would be better if the person were dead and gone, and decided against broadcasting it. They were concerned it might be interpreted as promoting the idea of someone willingly ending their existence, a serious worry for a channel with a large young audience. As a result of this concern, the video was banned by MTV, limiting its public exposure at the time. Dave Mustaine clarified that the song was not about a desire to pass away, but was written in response to the deep sadness and sense of abandonment he felt after learning about the tragic death of his friend, Cliff Burton of Metallica. Despite this explanation of it being a song about grief, MTV maintained its decision, highlighting the channel's cautious approach to music, dealing with such profoundly serious themes. And then came another Megadeth hit, softer in sound, but louder in controversy. 7. Megadeth's A Tout Le Monde pulled again. Megadeth, continuing to produce impactful music, aimed for a more emotionally resonant feel with A Tout Le Monde, which translates to everyone, a notable song from their 1994 album, Euthanasia. However, controversy arose once more. MTV again decided to ban the music video. The French lyrics, which included the lines, "To all my friends, I love you, I have to leave," when combined with a video portraying sad individuals who then disappeared, raised alarms for the network. They worried that the song and its visuals could be misconstrued as a final goodbye from someone intending to make themselves pass away. Dave Mustaine expressed considerable frustration, explaining that the song was inspired by a dream about his deceased mother having a chance to say the loving farewells she couldn't in life, making it a song of love and closure, in his view, not one of tragedy. Nevertheless, MTV adhered to its decision, making this song another focal point in discussions about how the messages in music can be interpreted or misinterpreted by audiences and institutions. But enough sadness, it's time to scream. The next band wore masks, made nightmares, and got banned before you could blink. 8. Slipknot Spit It Out video got banned. Slipknot, the 9-member masked band from Iowa known for their aggressive sound and chaotic stage presence, was poised to discover the answer with Spit It Out, an intensely popular track from their explosive 1999 self-titled debut album. The controversy centered entirely on its music video, in which the band paid homage to the terrifying movie The Shining by reenacting some of its most memorable and scary scenes. Upon reviewing the video, MTV deemed it too extreme, too violent, too unsettling, and too likely to cause nightmares for their viewers. Consequently, the video for Spit It Out was banned by MTV. The band and their fans were perplexed by this decision, arguing that the video was clearly a parody of a well-known film and not intended as a display of actual harmful content. Despite MTV's refusal to air it, Slipknot's raw energy and unforgettable live performances propelled them to superstardom anyway, demonstrating that sometimes being considered too scary for TV can be an intriguing part of a band's appeal. And if Slipknot scared you, buckle up. This next video had Lemmy rising from the grave. Literally. 9. Motorhead's Eliminated by Death was canceled by MTV. Motorhead, famously one of the loudest bands in the world, led by the iconic Lemmy Kilmister, were about to challenge MTV's content standards with their song Killed by Death, which appeared on their 1984 compilation album, No Remorse. The music video for this track was a spectacle of pure rock and roll energy, showing Lemmy performing daring feats on his motorcycle, surviving a mock execution, and emerging from his grave. The executives at MTV reviewed this display of wild action and concluded that it featured excessive and senseless rough actions, effectively deeming it too filled with pretend fighting and danger for their channel. As a result, MTV banned the video. For Motorhead, a band that embodied a spirit of rebellion, this band likely only enhanced their reputation as rock and roll outlaws. Lemmy, with his distinctive voice and uncompromising attitude, was seen by many as the personification of rock and roll, and this video perfectly captured Motorhead's unapologetic and chaotic style. But controversy doesn't need zombies. Sometimes, just one powerful pose can set the world on fire. 10. Soundgarden's Jesus Christ. Pose caused big chaos. Soundgarden, an influential band from the Seattle grunge movement known for Chris Cornell's incredibly powerful vocals, was about to learn just how sensitive certain symbols can be with their song Jesus Christ Pose, a fierce track from their 1991 album Bad Motor Finger. The primary source of the controversy was the music video, which depicted various figures, including a skeleton and even vegetables, in poses reminiscent of Jesus on the cross. MTV promptly banned the video, labeling it blasphemous, meaning profoundly disrespectful to God and sacred things. Many religious individuals were deeply offended, feeling that the video mocked their faith. The situation became so intense that the band reported receiving serious threats of harm while they were touring in Europe. The ban limited the video's visibility, but the controversy itself was enormous. Soundgarden attempted to explain that the song was not intended to ridicule Jesus directly, but was instead a critique of public figures who theatrically portray themselves as suffering martyrs to gain attention. However, the imagery of the pose was so potent that many people could not look past the perceived attack on their faith, serving as a stark reminder of how explosive the intersection of rock music and religious symbolism can be. Let's jump back to Twisted Sister, who tried horror comedy and still got slammed. 11. Twisted Sister's zombie video was banned. Twisted Sister, still recognized by their vibrant makeup and flamboyant outfits, returned to generate more musical discussion with Be Cruel to Your School, a playful misspelling of Be Cruel to Your School, a lively rock song from their 1985 album Come Out and Play, which even featured a guest appearance by the legendary Alice Cooper. The music video was like a short monster film set in a school, showing the band members as students and Alice Cooper as a teacher, before a horde of comical zombies, pretend reanimated dead people, overran the school, creating a great deal of amusing mess. However, MTV did not find it amusing, deeming the video too gross and objectionable and refusing to play it. This decision was particularly confusing because MTV had previously aired Michael Jackson's Thriller video, which was filled with much scarier zombies and had been very popular. Dee Snider, Twisted Sister's singer, was extremely angered by the ban, feeling that MTV was unfairly targeting them because they were a loud heavy metal band rather than a mainstream pop superstar. He considered it unjust, especially since the zombies in their video were clearly fake and intended to be funny. The ban negatively affected the song's potential popularity, demonstrating again the significant influence MTV had at the time in determining what young audiences would see and hear. But from funny zombies to tragic headlines, the next story turned one song into a courtroom nightmare. 12. Ozzy's self-harm solution ended up in court. Ozzy Osbourne, the renowned frontman who first gained fame with Black Sabbath and had since become a solo superstar with an even more notorious reputation, released Self-Harm Solution, a hard-hitting track from his impactful 1980 debut solo album Blizzard of Oz. The title itself, Self-Harm Solution, sounded to many as if it were suggesting that choosing not to live anymore was a viable answer to problems. This issue escalated dramatically in 1986 when the parents of a young man who had tragically ended his own life initiated a lawsuit against Ozzy Osbourne. They asserted that their son had been listening to this specific song and that its lyrics, including phrases like "where to hide," that choice is the only way out, along with alleged hidden subliminal messages, had influenced him to take that action. This lawsuit became a major and frightening legal event. Ozzy had to defend himself, explaining that the song was actually written about his friend Bon Scott of AC/DC, who had sadly passed away due to excessive alcohol consumption, and that the word solution in the title referred to alcohol as a liquid. After extensive deliberation, the court ruled that Ozzy Osbourne was not to blame, affirming that song lyrics are protected by free speech principles and that there was no proof the song was intended to cause harm or that hidden messages could compel such actions. Ozzy won the case, but the song remained shadowed by this dark accusation for a considerable time. And just when that case closed, Judas Priest was dragged back into the courtroom for something even more chilling. 13. Judas Priest's Better by You faced lawsuits. Judas Priest, the iconic metal band already acquainted with controversy, found themselves embroiled in another terrifying legal ordeal concerning their song Better by You, Better Than Me, a powerful cover version included on their 1978 album Stained Class. In 1990, the band was sued by the families of two young men who had made a pact to end their own lives. One of them passed away, while the other was severely injured and passed away some years later due to complications. Their families were convinced that the Judas Priest song contained subliminal messages, secret words, possibly "do it," hidden within the music, which they believed had compelled the young men to make this dreadful decision. The courtroom atmosphere was tense. The band members firmly denied inserting any secret messages into their music, while lawyers for the families played recordings backward in an attempt to find evidence. Ultimately, the judge ruled that Judas Priest was not guilty. While there might have been some unusual sounds in the recording, the judge found no evidence that the band had intentionally placed them there to cause harm, nor was there proof that such messages could actually make someone take such extreme actions. Judas Priest was cleared, but the trial was a frightening experience that highlighted the significant fear and suspicion that heavy metal music could sometimes generate. Now let's take a turn into the truly grotesque, a band whose lyrics and covers were banned around the world. 14. Cannibal Corpse songs were banned in countries. Cannibal Corpse, the American death metal group, is renowned for pushing the boundaries of shocking lyrical content and gruesome artwork further than perhaps any other band, with song titles alone that are often enough to cause listeners to shudder. Their songs frequently describe, in explicit detail, fictitious scenes of extreme harm and other disturbing acts, and their album covers commonly feature cartoonish yet incredibly graphic illustrations of these imagined scenarios. Because their material is so over the top with its depictions of pretend violence and causing terrible harm to fictional characters, many people find it deeply offensive and express concern that it trivializes serious issues. Some individuals believe the content is so extreme that it should not be permitted at all. As a consequence, Cannibal Corpse effectively became international musical outlaws. Several countries either banned their albums outright or heavily censored them. In Germany, for many years, they were prohibited from performing songs from their first few albums live, and their album covers were often hidden from view or sold in plain packaging. Australia also imposed restrictions on their music. The band consistently maintains that their work is akin to an extreme horror movie, entirely fictional and intended as entertainment, not a reflection of real-life desires or events. Nevertheless, their music remains some of the most controversial and parent-unfriendly material ever produced. You want history? Slayer gave it to you raw, and not everyone thought it was just a song. 15. Slayer's Angel of Death caused worldwide backlash. Slayer, recognized as one of the undisputed titans of thrash metal and known for their incredibly fast music and dark lyrical themes, released the historically horrifying Angel of Death as the explosive opening track on their legendary 1986 album, Rain in Blood. The song describes in shocking and graphic detail the terrible medical experiments conducted by Joseph Mengele, a real old German military doctor at the Auschwitz concentration camp during World War II, a place of unimaginable human suffering. Because the song did not continuously reiterate that Mengele was evil, but instead focused on detailing his horrific actions, some listeners quickly concluded that Slayer must be old German military sympathizers, or that they found Mengele's deeds somehow admirable. This was an extremely serious and damaging accusation. The song caused a significant uproar, to the extent that their original record company initially refused to release the album. Slayer vigorously defended themselves, stating unequivocally that they were not old German military and that the song was simply a historical account of profound evil, much like a factual report. Despite their explanations, the accusations of old German military sympathies persisted for many years, illustrating that when artists address the darkest aspects of human history, they risk being misunderstood. Furthermore, their later album Christ Illusion was recalled from stores in India because Christian groups were deeply offended by its artwork, which depicted a disfigured Jesus. If that shocked you, brace yourself. The next band tore up a Bible on stage and ended up in court. 17. Body Count's cop killer angered the president. Body Count, the groundbreaking band that uniquely fused Ice-T's street-conscious rap lyrics with the heavy impact of metal music, released the musical bombshell Cop Eliminator, which became the most intensely discussed track on their 1992 self-titled debut album. The song was written from the perspective of a fictional character who, being completely fed up with instances of police mistreating people, decides to seek revenge by causing deadly harm to law enforcement officers. This song was released during a period of heightened real-life tensions concerning police actions. Numerous police organizations, prominent politicians, including then-President George H.W. Bush, and various parent groups were profoundly outraged, arguing that the song irresponsibly encouraged actual harm against police officers and was therefore extremely dangerous. The pressure against the song and the band became immense, with calls for boycotts and even threats directed at Ice-T and the record company. Ice-T defended the song as a work of fiction, a character expressing extreme anger, and an exercise of free speech. However, the controversy was so intense that Ice-T eventually voluntarily removed Cop Eliminator from future pressings of the Body Count album, stating he did not want the record company or other artists to suffer due to the backlash. Cop Eliminator remains a legendary example of music igniting a massive social and political firestorm, and it continues to be a key reference point in discussions about censorship and artistic freedom. And if you thought that was extreme, wait till you hear about a song that was too dangerous even for Germany. 18. Rammstein's Ich tu dir weh was banned. Rammstein, the German industrial metal superstars, celebrated for their incendiary stage performances and deeply provocative lyrical content, were certainly about to test all established limits with their song Ich tu dir weh, which translates to I Hurt You, from their 2009 album Liebe ist für alle da, Love is for Everyone, featuring lyrics about deriving pleasure from causing discomfort, and their single The P Word, released from the same album, which was accompanied by a music video that was far beyond merely explicit. German authorities decided that the lyrics of Ich tu dir weh, concerning finding enjoyment in causing violence, were potentially harmful to young people, and consequently placed the entire album on a special restricted list, making it difficult for consumers to purchase. They expressed concern that the song made harmful actions seem appealing. The music video for The P Word, meanwhile, was not just suggestive. It contained actual scenes of naked adults engaging in very private grown-up activities, rendering it completely unsuitable for normal television broadcast. Rammstein initially had to re-release their album in Germany without Ich tu dir weh to comply with the restrictions. However, they challenged this decision in court and successfully had it overturned, with the judge ruling that the song constituted a work of art. The extraordinarily explicit video for The P Word was released on an adult website and quickly garnered millions of views precisely because its forbidden and shocking nature generated immense curiosity. Rammstein once again demonstrated that sometimes The more controversial an artistic creation is, the more intensely people will seek it out. But the most offensive thing of all? It wasn't even a song. It was just a t-shirt. 19. Cradle of Filth shirt led to arrests. Cradle of Filth, the English extreme metal band recognized for their vocalists' high-pitched shrieking style and their dark Gothic musical themes, were responsible for this infamous piece of merchandise which caused a massive stir in the 1990s. This particular controversy was not centered on a specific song, but rather on a t-shirt the band sold. The front of the t-shirt displayed an image of a nun appearing to engage in a private act, while the back bore the extraordinarily offensive slogan, "Jesus is a cunt," with the last word being an extremely vulgar and insulting term for a woman's private anatomy. This t-shirt was perceived as a deeply offensive item, especially by Christians and many others, who found its combination of the name of Jesus with such a crude word to be an ultimate act of disrespect and hatred. The image on the front further fueled the outrage. It was clearly designed to shock, and it succeeded spectacularly in doing so. Individuals who dared to wear this t-shirt in public places reportedly faced serious consequences, including being arrested in various countries for disturbing public order or for blasphemy. Stores that stocked the t-shirt also encountered protests. The band became legendary for this provocative item, even though many people viewed it merely as disgusting rather than artistically clever, highlighting that sometimes the merchandise a band sells can be even more explosive than their musical compositions. Now, a band that pushed every boundary, musically, visually, and ideologically. 20. Marduk's war songs got banned worldwide. Marduk, the Swedish black metal group known for their furious musical speed and their avowed dedication to being one of the most blasphemous bands in existence since their formation in 1990, has consistently embraced dark and provocative themes. Their song titles and album artwork often serve as a defiant declaration against religious conventions, with early demo recordings like F-Word Me Jesus, which featured a very shocking cover image involving a nude woman and a crucifix, immediately establishing the band's confrontational artistic direction. They also frequently incorporate themes from World War II into their music, often utilizing German war machine imagery. Their overtly aggressive anti-Christian lyrics and imagery are offensive to many religious individuals. Furthermore, their intense focus on World War II, particularly their use of German military themes, has led to endless accusations that the band harbors sympathies for old German military ideology, which is an extremely serious charge given the historical atrocities associated with old German militarism. Consequently, Marduk has faced numerous problems, including protests and cancellations of their concerts in various countries. The band members have consistently denied any old German military affiliations, stating their interest in World War II is purely historical or thematic. However, these accusations have persisted, fueled by incidents such as a 2018 report alleging that 2 band members purchased old German military propaganda, and more recently, the reported dismissal of their bass player for allegedly making an old German military salute on stage. The cloud of darkness and controversy continues to envelop Marduk. But where should we draw the line between free art and being responsible? Are they even separate things? Let us know. Smash that like button and subscribe for more. On stage, they seemed invincible, like superheroes with guitars. But in the end, they were not. The stories you're about to hear involve a dark conflict between bandmates that had a fatal conclusion and a final, heartbreaking choice that became a grim legend. These are the stories that truly shook the world of heavy metal. 1. Cliff Burton. Everyone who knows heavy metal knows the band Metallica. In the early 1980s, they were a young, hungry band that was taking over the world with a new, fast, and aggressive sound. A huge part of that sound was their bass player, Cliff Burton. Cliff wasn't just a bass player who stood in the back. He was a true musician, a genius who played his 4-string bass like a lead guitar. People called him the Jimi Hendrix of the bass. He wore bell-bottom jeans and had a quiet, cool confidence that made him stand out. He was the heart and soul of the band's early albums. In 1986, Metallica was on tour in Europe and becoming one of the biggest bands on the planet. After a show in Sweden, the band got on their tour bus to travel to the next city. The bunks on the bus were small and not very comfortable. To decide who got the best bunk for the night, Cliff and the band's guitarist, Kirk Hammett, drew playing cards. Cliff drew the ace of spades, the highest card, so he won. He pointed at Kirk and said, "I want your bunk." Kirk said okay and went to sleep at the front of the bus. It was a simple, random choice that would change music history forever. In the middle of the night, while everyone was asleep, the bus driver lost control on a patch of black ice. The bus slid off the road and flipped over. During the crash, Cliff was thrown through the window and the bus landed on top of him. He was gone in an instant. The members of Metallica didn't just lose their bandmate, they lost their brother. The world lost a talent that was just beginning to show what he could do. It's a terrifying thought that a life can end because of a patch of ice and the draw of a card. But as shocking as a random accident is, what happens when the tragedy isn't random at all, but happens right in the middle of a concert? The next story is one of the darkest moments in music history. 2. Dimebag Darrell. If you're a fan of heavy guitar riffs, you owe a lot to Dimebag Darrell Abbott. He was the powerhouse guitarist for the band Pantera. Throughout the 1990s, Pantera was one of the biggest and most influential metal bands in the world. Dimebag had a unique sound and a wild, fun-loving personality. He was famous for his squeal guitar solos and his signature pink beard. He was a true original, and every metal guitarist who came after him was influenced by his playing. After Pantera broke up, which was a very messy and public situation, Dimebag and his brother, the drummer Vinnie Paul, started a new band called Damage Plan. They were excited to be making music again and were on tour supporting their first album. On the night of December 8, 2004, they were playing a show at a small club in Columbus, Ohio. The club was packed with fans who were excited to see the legend in person. But just as the band started their first song, a troubled individual from the crowd rushed onto the stage. Before anyone could react, the man unleashed a senseless act of violence. Dimebag Darrell's life was tragically cut short right there on stage, in front of his brother and his fans. It was an event so horrific, so unbelievable, that the entire music world went into a state of shock. It changed concert security forever. The idea that a musician wasn't safe on their own stage sent a chill through every performer and fan. Dimebag's passing was a violent shock that nobody saw coming. But sometimes, the danger isn't in the crowd. Sometimes, it's flying high in the sky with you. And the next story is about a guitar genius whose flight to a festival ended in a fiery nightmare. 3. Randy Rhoads. Before there was Dimebag, another young guitar hero was changing the game. His name was Randy Rhoads. Randy was a small guy with a giant talent. He first got famous playing in the band Quiet Riot, but his life changed forever when he was hired to be the guitarist for Ozzy Osbourne's new solo band. With Ozzy, Randy co-wrote and played on two of the most legendary heavy metal albums of all time, Blizzard of Oz and Diary of a Madman. He mixed classical music with heavy metal in a way no one had ever heard before. He was on his way to becoming one of the all-time greats. In March of 1982, the band was on tour in Florida, heading to a festival. They stopped at a property in a town called Leesburg to get some things fixed on their tour bus. The property had a small airport and a few planes. The band's bus driver, who also had a pilot's license, decided it would be fun to take a small plane for a joyride. The first flight had a couple of crew members. On the second flight, Randy Rhoads and the band's makeup artist decided to go up with him. The pilot started flying dangerously low to the ground, trying to buzz the tour bus where the rest of the band, including Ozzy, was sleeping. He made a couple of passes successfully. But on the third pass, the plane's wing clipped the top of the tour bus. The plane spiraled out of control, crashed into a nearby garage, and exploded in a massive fireball. Everyone on board was gone instantly. Randy Rhoads was only 25 years old. Ozzy Osbourne was so devastated that he said he lost one of the best friends he ever had. The loss of Randy Rhoads in such a shocking accident was a massive blow. But sometimes the tragedy isn't a sudden, fiery crash. Sometimes it's a slow and sad fade away, which is what happened to our next iconic voice of a generation. 4. Layne Staley. In the early 1990s, a new sound came out of Seattle, Washington that took over the music world. It was called grunge, and one of its most powerful and haunting voices belonged to Layne Staley, the lead singer of Alice in Chains. Layne's voice was one of a kind. He could sing with a raw, powerful scream one moment, and then create beautiful, dark harmonies the next. The band's music was heavy, gloomy, and deeply emotional, and fans connected with the pain and honesty in Layne's lyrics. Alice in Chains became one of the biggest bands of the era. They had huge hit songs and sold millions of albums. But as the band got more famous, Layne began to struggle. He was fighting a long and difficult battle with his personal demons. The rock and roll lifestyle can be a dangerous trap, and Layne fell into it hard. His unhealthy habits started to affect his ability to perform and record. The band had to cancel tours, and it became clear that their powerful frontman was in serious trouble. For the last few years of his life, Layne became a recluse. He locked himself away in his Seattle apartment, rarely seeing anyone. His friends and family tried to help him, but he couldn't escape the darkness that had surrounded him. In April of 2002, his body was discovered in his home. He had been gone for about 2 weeks before anyone found him. It was a tragic and lonely end for a singer whose voice had touched millions. The rock and roll lifestyle had claimed another incredible talent. Layne's story is a terribly sad one of a slow decline. But our next legend seemed like the opposite. He seemed indestructible, a man who lived harder than anyone and just kept on going until one day he couldn't. 5. Lemmy Kilmister. For over 40 years, Ian Fraser Kilmister, known to the world simply as Lemmy, was the living, breathing spirit of rock and roll. As the frontman, bassist, and lead singer of the band Motorhead, Lemmy was an icon. With his signature mutton chops, his gravelly voice, and his bass guitar held high, he was the definition of cool. Motorhead's music was loud, fast, and aggressive, a blend of punk and metal that influenced nearly every heavy band that came after them. Lemmy was famous for his live fast, die old attitude. He lived a life of pure, unapologetic rock and roll. People used to joke that after the end of the world, the only things left would be cockroaches and Lemmy. He seemed truly indestructible. He toured constantly, played every show with maximum energy, and lived a lifestyle that would have stopped most people decades earlier. He was a force of nature. But even forces of nature can't last forever. In his later years, health problems started to catch up with him, but he refused to stop. He would walk on stage with a cane, but the moment the music started, he was the same old Lemmy. In December of 2015, just 2 days after his 70th birthday, Lemmy learned he had an extremely aggressive form of cancer. The doctors told him he only had a short time left. He didn't want a long, drawn-out battle. He went home, had his favorite video game machine brought to his apartment, and spent his final days with his family. Just 2 days after his diagnosis, he passed away peacefully. It turned out that a lifetime of living on the edge finally presented a bill he couldn't pay. The world was shocked because everyone truly believed Lemmy would live forever. Lemmy's passing felt like the end of an era. Just as iconic, but in a totally different way, was our next star, a singer who battled a different kind of monster and did it with incredible grace. 6. Ronnie James Dio. If there was ever a true gentleman of heavy metal, it was Ronnie James Dio. He was a singer with a voice that was simply magical. It was powerful, epic, and could transport you to a world of rainbows, dragons, and castles. He sang for some of the biggest bands in history, including Rainbow, Black Sabbath after Ozzy left, and his own band, Dio. He is also the person credited with popularizing the devil horns hand gesture, which has become the universal sign for rock and metal all over the world. He said he got it from his Italian grandmother, who used it to ward off evil. Ronnie was beloved by everyone. He was known for being incredibly kind to his fans, spending hours after shows signing autographs and talking to them. He was a small man with a giant voice and an even bigger heart. His music was all about the battle between good and evil and the power of believing in yourself. He was a positive force in a genre that is often seen as dark. In 2009, the metal world was heartbroken to learn that Ronnie had been diagnosed with stomach cancer. But in true Dio fashion, he faced the illness with courage and optimism. He told his fans, "We will win," and began treatment. He continued to work on music and plan for the future. The entire metal community rallied around him, holding benefit concerts and sending messages of support. Everyone was pulling for Ronnie to beat the monster he was fighting. Sadly, despite his brave fight, the cancer was too aggressive. In May of 2010, Ronnie James Dio passed away, surrounded by his family and friends. The loss was immense. A true legend, a voice that defined a generation of metal, was gone. Dio fought a visible battle with a known disease. But our next musician's health problems started in a very strange and unexpected way, from something so small you could barely see it. 7. Jeff Hanneman. Slayer is one of the big four of thrash metal, along with Metallica, Megadeth, and Anthrax. They are known for being the fastest, heaviest, and most intense of them all. A huge part of their terrifying sound came from their guitarist and songwriter, Jeff Hanneman. Jeff wrote some of Slayer's most famous and controversial songs. His guitar solos were chaotic, screaming masterpieces. He was the quiet, reserved member of the band off stage, but a monster on it. In early 2011, Jeff was just hanging out at a friend's house when he was bitten by a spider. At first, he didn't think much of it, but soon his arm began to swell up and he was in incredible pain. He went to the hospital, where doctors told him he had a very serious condition. A flesh-eating bacteria had entered his body through the spider bite and was destroying the tissue in his arm. The doctors had to perform emergency surgery to save his life, and they told him he was lucky he didn't have to have his arm amputated. Jeff began a long and difficult recovery. He had to learn how to walk again and had to go through painful procedures to graft new skin onto his arm. He couldn't play guitar for a long time. The band hired another guitarist to fill in for him on tour, but everyone was hoping and waiting for Jeff to make a full recovery and rejoin the band. He even made a surprise appearance at a Slayer show in 2011 to play a couple of songs, and the crowd went absolutely wild. It seemed like he was on the road to recovery. But the damage from the infection and his past rock and roll lifestyle had taken a serious toll on his body, especially his liver. 2 years after the spider bite, in May of 2013, Jeff Hanneman passed away from liver failure. It was a shocking and bizarre end for one of metal's most important architects. A spider bite is a strange way for a health crisis to begin. Our next story is about another young talent whose journey ended suddenly and tragically, right in his own home. 8. The Reverend. The band Avenged Sevenfold exploded onto the scene in the 2000s with a fresh take on heavy metal. They mixed classic metal sounds with punk energy and modern style. A key ingredient to their unique sound was their drummer, James Owen Sullivan, known to the world as the Rever. The Rev wasn't just a drummer. He was a musical madman. He played with incredible skill and creativity, but he also wrote many of the band's most popular songs and was a key backup vocalist. He was the band's wild, creative spirit. He was known for his goofy sense of humor and his over-the-top personality. On stage and in videos, he was a blur of motion and energy. The band was like a tight-knit family of brothers, and the Rev was the crazy, brilliant heart of the group. They were on top of the world, releasing one hit album after another and gaining millions of fans. In December of 2009, the music world was completely blindsided. The news broke that the Rev had passed away at his home in Huntington Beach, California. He was only 28 years old. The official report said it was a tragic accident. A combination of things he had taken had a fatal result. His bandmates were completely devastated. They had just been writing a new album together, and now their best friend was gone. Losing the Rev was a massive blow, not just to the band, but to a whole generation of young metal fans who looked up to him. The band decided to carry on, even having one of the Rev's drumming idols, Mike Portnoy, play drums on their next album, Nightmare, which became a tribute to their fallen brother. The Rev's passing was a tragedy that happened behind closed doors. The story of our next musician is tragically similar, a private struggle that ended in a lonely hotel room. 9. Paul Gray. When the band Slipknot first appeared in the late 1990s, the world had never seen anything like them. There were 9 members, all wearing terrifying masks and orange jumpsuits. Their music was a chaotic, brutal, and incredibly powerful explosion of sound. You couldn't tell who was who, which was part of the point. They were a single, monstrous unit. But behind one of those masks was one of the band's creative leaders, the bassist Paul Gray, also known as Number 2 or the Pig. Paul was one of the founding members of Slipknot and was a primary songwriter for the band. He wrote many of their most famous and complex musical pieces. Despite the aggressive music, friends and bandmates described Paul as one of the kindest, warmest, and most loving people you could ever meet. He was the calm, steady center of the 9-man hurricane. He was the glue that held the band together. The band achieved massive worldwide success, but that level of fame can come with intense pressure. Paul had fought personal battles in private for years. In May of 2010, while the band was on a break, Paul was found alone in a hotel room in Iowa. He had lost his private struggle. His passing was an incredible shock. How could this band, this unstoppable force of nature, lose one of its core members? The remaining members of Slipknot held a press conference a few days later. For the first time ever, they appeared in public without their masks, showing their tear-streaked faces to the world. They spoke about their love for their brother Paul and what he meant to the band and to them as people. It was a heartbreaking moment that showed the real human beings behind the scary masks. Paul Gray's passing revealed the hidden pain behind the mask. Our next musician was also known for his imposing image, a gothic giant who joked about his own end before it actually came. 10. Peter Steele. Peter Steele was one of the most unique and imposing figures in all of music. He was the front man for the gothic metal band Type O Negative. Peter was a giant of a man, standing at 6 feet 8 inches tall, with long black hair and a deep vampiric voice. His band's music was slow, heavy, dark, and romantic, but also filled with a cynical, sarcastic sense of humor. Peter wrote lyrics about love, loss, and depression, but he always did it with a wink and a smile. He was famous for his dark and self-deprecating humor. He loved to play pranks on the audience and on music journalists. One of his most famous pranks was in 2005 when the band's website posted an image of a tombstone with his name and the dates 1962 to 2005. Fans panicked, thinking he had passed away. It turned out to be a joke, a reference to the fact that the band was leaving their old record label. It was classic Peter Steele. Because of his dark humor and his long history of battling personal demons, many people weren't sure what to believe when the real news came. In April of 2010, just a few years after his fake passing, rumors began to circulate that Peter Steele had died for real. Many fans thought it was just another one of his elaborate jokes. But sadly, this time it was true. Peter Steele had passed away from heart failure. He was 48 years old. The giant of Gothic metal, the man with the booming laugh and the deep voice, was gone. It was a truly ironic and sad ending for a man who always seemed to be laughing at the darkness. Peter Steele's story is a strange one of dark humor becoming a sad reality. Our next two stories are linked by a similar profound sadness involving two of the most powerful voices of their generation who lost their own private wars. 11. Chris Cornell. Chris Cornell had a voice that could shake the heavens. As the frontman for Soundgarden, he was one of the architects of the Seattle grunge movement. His vocal range was incredible. He could let out a powerful, high-pitched scream that could shatter glass and then sing a soft, beautiful melody that could break your heart. Soundgarden's music was heavy, complex, and smart, and Chris's lyrics were like poetry, full of dark and beautiful imagery. After Soundgarden, he went on to have a successful solo career and fronted the supergroup Audioslave with members of Rage Against the Machine. To the outside world, Chris seemed to have it all. He was a rock icon, a handsome and charismatic performer, and a loving husband and father. He was still touring and making incredible music. In May of 2017, Soundgarden played a sold-out show in Detroit. By all accounts, it was a fantastic performance. Chris ended the show by telling the crowd, "I love you." But just hours later, the world was stunned by unbelievable news. Chris Cornell was found in his hotel room. He had lost his fight with an inner sadness that he had battled for much of his life. The world was in shock. How could this happen? He had just been on stage, connecting with thousands of fans. No one saw it coming. The loss of his one-of-a-kind voice left a massive hole in the heart of rock music. It was a devastating reminder that even the biggest stars can be fighting battles we know nothing about. The music world was still reeling from the loss of Chris Cornell when just 2 months later, another tragedy struck that felt like a painful echo. 12. Chester Bennington. Chester Bennington was the voice of a generation for millions of kids who grew up in the 2000s. He was the co-frontman of the band Linkin Park. The band's music was a revolutionary mix of heavy metal, hip-hop, and electronic sounds. At the center of it all was Chester's voice. He could rap and sing soft melodies, but he was most famous for his raw, cathartic scream. It was a scream that was full of pain, anger, and frustration, and it connected deeply with fans who felt like outsiders. The band's first album, Hybrid Theory, is one of the best-selling debut albums of all time. Chester was very open about his struggles. He spoke publicly about a difficult childhood and his long battles with his inner demons and unhealthy habits. He poured all of that pain into his music, and in doing so, he helped millions of his fans feel less alone. He was a close friend of Chris Cornell, and he was hit especially hard by his passing. He even sang a beautiful, heartbreaking version of the song Hallelujah at Chris's funeral. Just 2 months after Chris's passing, on what would have been Chris's 53rd birthday, the world received another devastating blow. Chester Bennington was found at his home in California. He too had succumbed to the profound sadness that he had fought for so long. He was only 41 years old. To lose two of rock's most iconic voices in such a similar way, so close together, was an almost unbearable tragedy. It started a much-needed worldwide conversation about mental health and the importance of seeking help. Chester and Chris were modern icons, but our next two stories take us to the icy cold of Scandinavia and into one of the darkest and most infamous chapters in all of metal history. 13. Dead. This next part of our story is very dark and very different from the others. It involves the Norwegian black metal scene of the early 1990s. This scene was meant to be the most extreme, shocking, and anti-everything form of music ever created. And at the center of it was a band called Mayhem. Their singer was a young man from Sweden named Per Yngve Olin, who went by the stage name Dead, and he took his name very, very seriously. Dead was obsessed with all things dark and grim. He was known to wear clothes that he had buried in the ground so they would smell like decay. He wanted to look and feel like a corpse on stage. He was one of the first to wear the corpse paint makeup that became a signature look for the black metal scene. By all accounts, he was a deeply troubled young man who seemed to genuinely hate being alive. His performances were legendary for their intensity and his commitment to creating a truly dark atmosphere. In April of 1991, while living in a house with his bandmates, Dead made a dark and final choice that became part of the band's grim legend. He left behind a short note that famously began with the words, "Excuse all the blood." The story gets even more disturbing from there. When his bandmate, the guitarist known as Euronymous, found him, his first act was to go buy a camera and take pictures of the scene before calling the police. It was a shocking act that showed just how far the band was willing to push the boundaries of decency. Dead's final act set a dark tone for the entire black metal scene, but the darkness within the band Mayhem was far from over, and it would eventually consume its own leader. 14. Euronymous. After the passing of their singer, Dead, the leader of the band Mayhem was the guitarist, Øystein Arseth, who went by the name Euronymous. He was the founder of the band and a central figure in the entire Norwegian black metal scene. He owned a record store called Helvet, which means hell in Norwegian, and it became the meeting place for all the young musicians in the scene. He also started his own record label to release their music. Euronymous had a reputation for being a manipulator. He wanted to create the most evil and dangerous music scene in the world, and he encouraged others to engage in extreme behavior. He used the infamous photos of his deceased bandmate, Dead, as an album cover, which caused a huge controversy even within the dark black metal community. He was building a dangerous empire built on a foundation of negativity and shock value. But as the scene grew more extreme, the conflicts within it grew more intense. Euronymous got into a serious conflict with another member of the scene who was playing bass in his band at the time. The conflict was about power, respect, and money. The tension grew and grew until it reached a boiling point. In August of 1993, the conflict had a fatal ending. The other musician drove to Euronymous' apartment in Oslo, and a violent confrontation occurred. Euronymous' life was ended that night by someone he considered a follower. It was a grim conclusion to a story already steeped in tragedy. The leader of the so-called evil scene was gone, a victim of the very darkness he had helped to create. The Mayhem story is one of internal conflict gone horribly wrong. But thankfully, not all metal stories are that dark. Our next musician was a pioneer who fought a very different, very brave battle. 15. Chuck Schuldiner. While the black metal scene was taking hold in Norway, another new genre of metal was being born in Florida. It was called death metal, and its founding father was a man named Chuck Schuldiner. Chuck was the leader, guitarist, singer, and main songwriter for the band Death. Starting in the mid-1980s, Chuck and his band pushed the boundaries of heavy music, making it faster, more complex, and more intense than ever before. But Chuck was not a one-trick pony. As the years went on, the music of Death became more and more melodic and technical. Chuck was a musical genius who was always evolving and trying new things. He was respected by everyone in the metal community for his incredible guitar skills and his forward-thinking songwriting. He was the godfather of an entire genre, but he never stopped being a student of music. In 1999, at the height of his creative powers, Chuck was diagnosed with a pontine glioma, a rare type of brain tumor. The news was a shock to the metal world. Chuck immediately began treatment, including radiation therapy. The entire metal community rallied around him, holding benefit concerts and auctions to help him pay for his expensive medical bills. Famous musicians from bands like Korn, Slipknot, and Red Hot Chili Peppers all pitched in to help. Chuck fought his illness with incredible courage and dignity for 2 years. He even continued to write and work on music for a new band he had formed called Control Denied. Sadly, despite his brave fight and the support from all over the world, Chuck Schuldiner passed away in December of 2001. He was only 34 years old. He wasn't lost to a rock and roll lifestyle or a freak accident, but to a cruel illness that took him far too soon.